watching. So no, thank you very much for that. Our final talk is from Manuel, who's at Bruhati Solutions, and he's going to be talking about what we really need to adopt an agile architecture mindset. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. I'm here with Shay Mistry, another director of Bruhati, and I'm going to talk about, very briefly, an introduction of who we are, what we do. Then we're going to see what are the benefit of an agile architecture practice, so if we have to introduce into an architecture team, and agile impacts of 2D architecture and design practice. So for a practice that has never seen it before, what's changing really? What kind of deliverables do we need to introduce, and what's their impact? Have you implemented a design framework? We're just going to talk about design frameworks very quickly and see how they can support also the introduction of an agile mindset and also large-scale transformations using agile. And then lessons learned, and then a quick demo just to cheer you up because it's quite late. So we're going to start with an introduction of Bruhati. We're an organization that is delivering professional services for large organizations across the country and the world. The latest big agile transformation we have done, so we're digital transformation experts, was a O2, where we replace all their IT systems, and we use the scaled agile approach based on the SAFe framework. We're currently supporting NHS on high-profile programs, COVID-related, and British Red Cross. We offer products in strategy and architecture, agile and delivery, business transformation, and cloud services. Let's start with a question now. If you don't mind helping me out here, if someone is writing down the answers, just play them out to me. I can't see the screen. So what are the benefits of introducing an agile architecture and design practice? So for the one of you that are in the delivery team, and what do you think is a benefit of being agile? Any answer? Okay, I'll go on then. Well, I think we need to talk about objectives, way to achieve our objectives, and then what are the outcomes of being able to have an agile architecture team. On the left, you can see that in order to achieve an agile architecture practice, we spoke about the mindset, but then in practice, also, you have to look into having architecture assurance frameworks that support that introduction and the governance around it. You need to make sure that the artifacts that are delivered are also supporting an agile methodology, and making sure that you learn and get confident with the concept of emergent architecture. We're not going to talk about it. You probably know that already. It's a SAFe terminology. What kind of outcomes can you have? Well, if you do it correctly and you use the right frameworks and tools, you have a repository of knowledge that you're going to build up. You can be able to control costs better, have more governance, increase the return on investment, improve your end-to-end traceability, have visibility around the organization, because as the other panelists were saying today, it's about being part of a team and being seen there and being able to deliver more impact as well in the organization. So there's a lot of benefits. Now let's see if someone wants to join on other questions. The second question we have here is, what are the agile impacts to the architecture and design team? So if we are introducing agile, we've never seen it before. For the one of you which are in the architecture team or design or anyway delivery. Okay, so the answer is, unless feel free to interrupt me if you want to jump in. We need more governance. An agile architecture team has to be able to govern the continuously changing and fast-paced environment that they are in, especially in a large agile transformation when you have over 600 people involved only in the core team, and you have up to 20 squads. Unless you introduce governance, you won't be able to support effectively the organization. Parallel work, you know that it's an element that is seen very much. It's not only about iteration, it's also about multiple iteration running in parallel. And in the architecture and design team, we are originally used to see enterprise architects doing their roadmaps, solution architects doing their release architectures, and system architects then looking at the system design. This can be compressed, this can be seen in parallel, multiple options are open, as we're going to see. We need much more synergy between the teams. Roadmaps, they are, yes, strategic, but in the end, as Safe calls them, we have architecture runways. So we are going to see how can we achieve the maximum benefit in the very shortest term. Emergent architecture, that's really important. Usually, organizations that haven't seen large agile transformation, they're not used to the continuous impact to the architecture that a large agile program has. And controlling the changes to the architecture is something that requires some skill and a specific framework. We're going to see that in a minute. Working a lot with planning, so architecture and design teams working very closely to program and project management is even more important now. Some organizations think the architects should be in the ivory tower, but that's wrong. Also for a waterfall approach or any other approach, but mostly in Agile, there should be a very good cohesion between teams. Focusing on near-term features, making sure that the systems as well and the technologies we're using are able to support continuous delivery, like we spoke about cloud technologies, we spoke about serverless, we spoke about containerized technologies. And variability. Things can be open until very close to delivery, because as you know, the definition of the scope tends to be closed, quite close to the release delivery date. So we need to make sure that we are ready to address different options, also depending on the amount of dependencies we're working with. So another question, do you need architecture deliverables in Agile transformation? This is about, okay, we are introducing Agile, so we don't need documentation anymore, right? Well, no. And this is an example of, before we get to the documentation and see a bit about what we have done and how we managed to introduce an Agile mindset for a very large transformation. This is an example of a team, and we spoke about guilds, so it's quite exciting that we're seeing yet another type of organization. So this is what we used in the past for a very, very large delivery. I was saying before, we had 21 squads in parallel. Squads are taking a set of scope and they're delivering it from epic definition to all the user stories and refinement and then delivery of those. So they have that responsibility. But how do we make sure that all of these work together and they are working on the same direction or against each other? And we also reduce duplication and we unlock issues. There are always issues. So we need a level of control on top. And what we've seen here was introducing a business squad team, which is looking after unlocking all the business issues and supporting from a business perspective, and a technical one, which is doing the same from a technical perspective. And then because we have to control the emerging architecture, we need another layer there, the architecture and design board, which is helping to bridge the delivery work with the strategic view of what we want to achieve. Then in terms of proper deliverables, in very large transformations, you can't get away without a blueprint. And this is something that can be created using different means, depends on also the tool set you have. But it's really important for these documents also to be delivered on time and to be iterated as much as possible, because the earlier they're visible to the whole ecosystem, the better it is for the program, reducing risk and increasing chance of success. Domain HLDs are used when you have very large transformation and you want to break up your scope in different domains. You still need to make sure that you have low-level designs, and design and deliverable assurance is also important there. Let's remember that agile mindset, it doesn't mean that the whole organization is agile. And when you have suppliers, many times they want to stick to their way of delivering. And having this documentation helps to control. Sorry for the scary slide. I'll try to break it down for you and make it a bit more easier. Here, there are just a couple of concepts we really want to get through. So the first one is, as you can see on top, we have a couple of colors. We have a green and red one, and they are highlighting the difference between a fully connected and a disconnected organization. We're going to talk about it in a second. Secondly, we're trying to explain what artifacts we need to deliver in large agile transformations. And on top, you can see what we call in Bruhati the digital transformation value chain. The digital transformation value chain is nothing but a set of phases that every large transformation has to follow. And there is a level of iteration. It can be an iteration that you will see at release level, and also within delivery, you have your sprints. But in terms of deliverables, you start as we're still talking about architecture and design here. You start with architecture, vision, and strategy. We need to define roadmaps and release architectures. We need an enterprise architecture repository of reference. That's why I was talking about having a repository before. Without that, it's really easy to lose control. You have 21 squad working on it, so you have to have the right tools. You need to be able to, when you're in delivery, validate processes, data entities, application impacts, interfaces, making sure that if you're running multiple stacks, those are quite clear. What kind of strategy are we having? How do we migrate? These are challenges that you will see also in a classic, as an example, waterfall delivery. But the big important point here is having a reference architecture and design framework. Without a reference architecture and design framework, it's really difficult to control a large transformation using Agile, also using waterfall. Ready for scale and service performance are also other activities that need to be looked at from architecture into service. Now, let's make it a bit more complicated. No, a bit easier, hopefully. What frameworks have you implemented? So, I'm really interested to understand, and maybe you can write it down on the questions, we'll talk about it later. Have you ever seen a framework? Do you know what it is? And what's your opinion on that? In Bruhati, we have some assurance frameworks that we defined. These are based on best practice and the experience we had delivering large transformations. And we can see that there are two, ADAF and ADDF here, where ADAF looks at assurance of architecture and design across the whole transformation, from strategy to portfolio to delivery and service. And ADDF instead is looking into, when I'm delivering, how can I deliver across business, delivery and solution layer in the most effective way? How can we make them work? And now that everything is remote, this is even more important. Teams don't see each other. So how can we create that cohesion? We need process, we need frameworks, we need templates and tools. And that's how we managed to get control over this large agile transformation. So just to wrap this up, in order to develop an agile mindset, we think you need to make sure that you address resistance to change. And we saw that in the other talk as well. Resistance to change of agile adoption, it's a big showstopper. So we need buy-in of the executive team and making sure that they are pushing to address these as a matter of priority. Alignment of teams, making sure that we involve every team into the conversations. Stakeholder management. If you have a large agile transformation with 500 stakeholders and a lot of them are decision makers, how can you make them all happy? You can't. So it's all about making sure that the expectations are set before even delivering anything. And that makes it a bit easier. Products versus project. You know very well that when you're an agile organization, you should start thinking about products. So that's what you're delivering. It's not a project anymore. Workflow, frameworks and tools. We spoke a lot about that, and to me, it's quite an important point. We believe that unless large organizations are ready with frameworks and tools and processes in place. It will be very, very difficult. I call it the 6-month rule, actually. I think that organizations sometimes embark in these transformations and they think, yeah, I will do that. But then they take about 6 months to get up and running at full speed. This is something that can be compressed when you have the right approach. Keeping everything as much out of the box as possible, that always works. And making sure you empower your team. Again, we spoke about the power of guilds and how powerful they are because they bring everyone at the same level. Exactly the point. If you make sure that your teams can own their decision, for sure they are much more successful. Now, I'm going to show you a little demo, just a few minutes, of an example of how we actually implemented an end-to-end large agile transformation using frameworks and tools. And it's also a different voice, so maybe it's a bit better. There's a lot of music. And we used the Gartner quadrant best products in the enterprise architecture and in delivery space. We partnered with Software AG and BizDesign. And I think it's quite exciting to see them working. There's actually a little demo. So if you don't mind, I'll just launch the video. Hopefully we're ready to go.
Welcome to the demonstration session of the Bruhati Architecture, Design and Delivery Framework for Agile Digital Transformation. Ben represents some of the core stakeholders involved in the digital transformation journey. The digital transformation value chain starts with strategy definition, then portfolio of changes planned. Change initiatives are organized in releases that are delivered and then moved to go-live service. Delivery, business and solution stakeholders are involved throughout the full transformation value chain and use the Bruhati Architecture, Design and Delivery Framework and tools to seamlessly collaborate and drive the end-to-end process. Business executives start the value chain transformation journey defining the organization's strategic themes. This is achieved through the use of the delivery layer toolset. In this example, it involves a Jira Kanban board. The next step in the transformation journey involves business executives and delivery leaders. They are planning change initiatives, assigning budget and program priorities. In this example, Jira is used to organize themes and epics in releases. When the release delivery work starts, business and delivery team are working on defining epics and user stories in the release. This is still done in Jira as part of the delivery layer, just before handing over to business layer for process analysis. The fourth step in the digital transformation value chain is to identify business process impacts. After strategic themes, release and epics are defined in Jira as part of the delivery layer, they'll push to the process layer, in this case BizDesign, Horizon, platform where business architects and analysts are assessing process impacts. In the business layer, the business process hierarchy is refined and high-level processes are created. When those are completed, business layer is pushing the request to the solution architecture and design team to start with a solution impact assessment. Solutions impacts are now identified using Horizon. For each epic, application impacts are identified. In this example scenario, a release context diagram is automatically created using the list of impacted application in the release. After the diagram is adjusted as required, the solution architect decides to model a set of technical flows that describe how the solution behaves to meet the epics in scope. Application impacts are here represented with a sequence diagram. Other representations can also be used. Let's now look into a couple of scenarios where digital transformation stakeholders can leverage the Bruhati Architecture, Design and Delivery Framework reporting capabilities. Any stakeholder can access the business, delivery and solution dashboards to perform analysis and impact assessments. In this example, we are assessing the dependencies of the product selection strategic theme. The app navigation page is used to select the theme's landscape. This is a very easy way to perform an impact assessment. Custom dashboards can be easily configured to control all different aspects of business, delivery and solution of your digital transformation. You can, for example, measure your delivery velocity, control artifact status, generate dynamically release, and domain application, business, data, and technology architectures. Remember that the Bruhati framework is tool agnostic and can be tailored to your organization tool set and needs. Call Bruhati for a free consultation. Bruhati, innovative digital transformation.
Okay, I'll move back to the presentation. So I'm ready for questions. If you want to see more information, you can go on our website anyway. The thing I wanted to say here is I believe it's quite important to see how during the delivery process, agile transformation can actually be achieved with the support of tools. And they can actually help getting the mindset if some organizations are ready for it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Really, really interesting talk. And I know from the conversation that our other panelists have got some questions that they'd like to put to you, and then we've got a few questions from the comments. So I suppose, Chris, would you like to go first in terms of your question?
Sure. Yeah. Great presentation, Manuel. I was just wondering, part of agility and, architecture and things like that, what we found is that it's often to do with continual improvement, being able to break the improvement down into smaller, effectively, basically pallet sizes in order to deliver. Have you got any thoughts about how architecture and architecture frameworks can, stimulate the ability to kind of break things down?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the great question. Yes, we do believe that this is actually very much achievable. If the right framework is there, this can actually be helping to continuously measure and adapt the direction of the program. In fact, every big, large transformation at the moment works trying to define their product as a minimum viable product, and then instantly measure through the delivery life cycle. From my experience, having the ability to see where you're going, especially when you're driving this big transformation train, is what really makes the difference. And it helps also the architecture team taking the right decision at the right time. Because even within the architecture team, there are a lot of decisions. Sometimes people really like to push things in. But the thing that work can be measured, and then the right one can be performed.
I also think, Chris, the continuous feedback loop. So once you've pushed something out into live, you're always getting feedback in terms of maybe customer feedback. It may be improvement. It may be return on investment. So you're doing these additional tweaks that get put into your sprints or your backlog, and then you're going to feed that in and make sure that's developed in the next release. So I think that's quite critical, is that continuous feedback loop as part of the framework.
Thank you.
Maya, I think you had a question as well?
Yeah, I do. You talk a lot. I think I understand your question now once I have seen your talk. You talk a lot about the structures, processes, and tools on your talk. But I wonder, how do you measure the engagement and the happiness of your teams? Does it matter at all?
It does matter a lot. And in fact, I think we said at the end on the lessons learned, we put people at the first and tools also as a support. But it's like a house. Unless you build the foundation, then and then the wall, then you can build the roof. And you're absolutely right. You need a solid foundation, which I think is also a process and a culture. And this is the foundation. Together with both, then you can build your house.
Sure. I've got another question as well. When you have clients approaching you.
Just on that one, I think what's really critical, what we're finding in these big transformations are business and IT coming together. So it's really important that they're not working in silos. They're working in product teams or in scrums or squads, and they're working together as this unit and realizing what they can deliver together. So I think that of people coming together is really empowering, and in the world we're in now to deliver things, I think that's quite crucial, not working in silos.
Beautiful, thank you so much. And my other question was about when you have a client approaching you that they want this digital transformation, how do you first approach this?
That's a great question. I believe that it's all about maturity level, and there are many different factors that are influences successful transformation, independently if it's agile or not agile, or business led or technical led. First thing to do is making sure you understand the current ecosystem and how are they organized, what kind of processes, different type of maturity levels. That helps to get and define agile introduction assessment, and also a transformation assessment. Also try and understand their objectives, business objectives, strategy, and needs, because everyone is different. So there are some core principles on how to approach it, but then the outcome of it is always up to the customer and what the customer really wants out of it.
Okay, thank you.
I think, just on Manuel's point, I think just the key points is just understanding what the critical needs are. Before you bring technology into it, it's just what is the organization looking to achieve? What is the business benefit? And understanding that, I think, is so critical, because you can go into a path which is technology led, and I think you need to understand what are the business capabilities, what is the business looking to achieve, and then evolve your technology around that, because putting the customer and is probably the most important thing, I would imagine, understanding the customer's needs, the end customer.
Good, thank you, Si.
And just finally, some questions from the comment section. So we've got Pradeep asks, do you think in large organizations there's too many technical design authorities that hinder the progress of delivery teams?
Well, great question. For sure, there is a big challenge trying to make everyone happy, and that always happens. I think it's about making sure you identify the people which are more pragmatic. If you have an agile approach, decision making is everything. And making sure you build your squads correctly, or anyway, the teams that are going to work on it, and empower them to take the decision. If those are technical design authorities, or it can be a business authority, surely one of the big tendencies nowadays is to make sure that you always have a strong business representation that has a little bit of technical knowledge as well, leading those groups. That to me helps putting everything together. But in the end, it's about group effort.
And the final question, we've had a comment from, this process looks like safe, and it's like, what do you think, Manuel?
Yeah, so we're influenced. We quoted SAFe many times because SAFe is one big example that we are bringing today. Because I was explaining before that our latest biggest transformation was delivered using that type of approach. But we believe it's a very good framework, and personally, I believe that there are things that can make things easy when you approach a very complex challenge, and this is one of these. But together with it, you also need the right set of tools and principles and frameworks, processes, templates. It doesn't come out of the thin air. If things are not defined up front, you'll have to define them later. I can tell you, it's been the good 6 months rule I was talking about. I've seen it happening many times in my career. I was part of the Accenture team as well. I've done many large transformations, and I always seen that talk happening over and over again. So sometimes a reference framework is not the full answer, but it's a great way of starting a transformation journey.
Thank you very much for that. And no, I'd like to thank all of our speakers who've spoken this evening on the topic of agile mindset, and we hope the audience who are watching this have found some benefit in it. And as I said at the beginning, these talks are all about adding value, and we hope that we've been able to do this. So again, a big thank you to all our speakers for giving up time to talk about what they're passionate about, and we hope to see you next time in our next Agile event, which will be advertised again soon. So from me, thank you very much, and from our speakers, thank you very much, everybody, and I hope you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.